Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. So I'm back from London. I had a wonderful time in London. I hope to have some material to upload onto the channel. I'm just waiting for a message from Political X about that, because he was organizing the event, or more or less organizing the event. So we're hopefully we'll have some material from that. It was very interesting. It was with the Rejoin EU, and we had some interesting discussions about a number of things, not just about rejoining the EU. How was the conference? Very good, Pineapple. So once again, as soon as I have some material, I'll upload it onto the channel so you guys can see it. It'll be probably also on the YouTube channel of Rejoin EU. So hopefully we'll be able to see that pretty soon. So it was an interesting conference, some interesting discussions, and some interesting people turned up. I won't go into too much detail, but hopefully that was all the discussions were recorded. So guys, what we're going to talk about tonight, of course, we're going to talk about what's happening with the security breach in Donald Trump's administration. Talk a bit about the budget. Remember, it's happening tomorrow, the spring statement. Some interesting comments about being working class. I'll get to that in a moment. And also criticism Jeremy Corbyn has of the government. So there's a clip on that as well. But before we begin, there is interesting by-election coming up, where Labour used to hold on to the seat, but the former MP, well, he got into a bit of how can I say, a bit of trouble with a constituent, and he of course was he resigned, or he was kicked out. I don't remember. Anyway, he got into a fight with a constituent, and the seat now is up for grabs. Labour held the seat. They won the seat, or held the seat, with a majority of 14,000. But now Reform UK have their focus on that seat, and there's a chance that they could win it. So Joe Politics visited the constituency and spoke to a few people.
Will you be voting for Nigel Farage in the upcoming election?
Okay, first of all, the by-election is not a vote for Nigel frigging Farage. Nigel Farage is not on the ballot. Okay, there's a Reform UK candidate on the ballot in this by-election. See, this is the thing. You should not be talking about Nigel Farage, because it's not Nigel Farage who's on the ballot. It's like back in 2019 when people said, I'm going to vote for Boris Johnson, even though they were not in Uxbridge.
No, I have morals. I am not a racist. I believe in equality. I believe that he shouldn't be preying on a deprived area like Runcorn and Helsby, but yeah. I also believe that we shouldn't be privatising everything. I believe that he shouldn't be cutting benefits, but that's what he wants. And again, I'm just not a racist, so.
Do you think people in the area will vote for him?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, once again, they can't vote for Nigel Farage because Nigel Farage is not running in the constituency. Okay.
Particularly when you're looking at Labour at the moment, who have just made quite drastic cuts to PIP payments and the winter fuel allowance.
Hey, Sarah, great to see you on the stream tonight. Hope you're well.
Do you think they could turn to him?
That is the reason why they will turn for him. So even just taking a look around, you look around the shopping city, all the shops are closed, no one has jobs, and it's not a bad thing. People just don't have the childcare or anything that's funded. He's saying he can promise all that, and he can't. It's going to be if they get in, it'll be the same thing 5 years later, if not worse.
Are you worried about the area?
Yeah, massively.
And she's right. So, Nigel Farage is not going to improve the situation. Reform UK are not going to improve the situation. They'll see this as an opportunity to say, see, the public are behind us. And as I keep saying, this will not be a vote for or against, for Labour or for the Tories or for Reform. It will be a vote either for Labour or against Labour. And if they're not able to convince people that they're doing something right, then they're going to lose the seat. So here's a guy who is planning to vote for Reform. So the previous lady, of course, was not going to vote for Reform. But here's a guy who's going to vote, and he explained why.
I grew up on the poverty ladder and food banks, so yes, I believe so. I've read the policies. I've campaigned for the policies. I'm a candidate myself.
Oh, okay, so I grew up
on the poverty ladder.
I grew up, okay, on the poverty ladder. I think it means on the, in poverty. You grew up on poverty, in poverty, and you're going to vote for Reform UK.
Ladder and food banks, so yes, I believe so. I've read the policies, I've campaigned for the policies, I'm a candidate myself. So I think, yes, they are, more than other parties, and for definite.
When you're looking at what Labour are doing at the moment,
Reform UK is a party of the rich for the rich. They don't give a flying F about people who need to rely on food banks. They don't care about people who are in poverty. Why are men so angry? That's a good question. Have you seen the TV show Adolescence?
some of their policies like cutting disability payments or cutting off the winter fuel allowance or even some of the inheritance tax changes. Do you think that that represents the working class?
Well, I think if you think about it, think an average UK street, a terrace. How many of those people on that street will have PIP payments? How many people have the winter fuel allowance? Because where I live, there's people affected by that. And I see that, and that makes me upset. I've witnessed that growing up. I've witnessed that now. I witnessed it today, my elderly neighbour. And it makes me angry. And it makes me angry that the Labour government never said that on their campaign literature. Who would say a negative thing? But it upsets me. And I think that's not the way the country should be going.
And you're campaigning, you're running for Reform UK. And Reform UK have said, they're against the idea of worker protections. Look, as I keep saying, this is not going to be a vote for reform. It's going to be a vote against Labour. If the policies that they've put forward so far, some of them may be good about when it comes to worker protections, but these policies are not getting traction within the mindsets of the public. Within the mindset of the public, you need to convince people that you're doing something right. But all we're hearing is, changes to PIP, where fewer people are going to be able to access it. Rhetoric about forcing people off benefits, encouraging people to take up work. If they don't take up work, there's a problem with them. As opposed to understanding why are people not taking up work? Well, because maybe it doesn't pay very well, or because the type of jobs that are on offer are not suitable for people. These are, what you need to do is fix the core problems as opposed to just punishing people or using some sort of stick in order to get them into employment. As I keep saying on this channel as well, more and more jobs are being outsourced to AI. So it's going to be more and more difficult for people to access employment. Why are governments not engaging in this? Do they not understand that more and more jobs are going to disappear? A few years ago, Rishi Sunak was talking about encouraging, he had a policy to encourage people to learn how to code. Well, now, recently, a leader in the AI industry has come out and said 99% of code in 2025 will be done by AI. Now, a small amount will be done by people, but most code will be written by AI. So what's the point in convincing people to learn to code? This is why it's important that we have some alternative, like a UBI or something like that. Anyway, Farage had a conference, or a rally, I should say, ahead of this by-election, and it didn't go down very well.
We can take control of this council, we can win the mayoralty and begin the process of turning this city around. And that's why I'm here today to launch the campaign. That's all right. The hard left. Here we are. Free Palestine. There we are. There we are.
Okay, so that went well, didn't it? I like how Farage was heard shouting "boring, boring" because they're taking attention away from him. More people are interested in what they're saying than what Farage has to say, because Farage is just repeating the same old lines as always. So yeah, look. Unfortunately, I think there's a good chance that his party will win the by-election. I almost fell into the trap of saying that he will win the by-election, that his party will win. Get the milkshakes ready. His milkshake brings the right wing to the yard. Dory, he'll leap away. Without a UBI, AI is pointless. It may be able to support tertiary, secondary, and perhaps some secondary functions, but it will never be a customer of the service. Yes, it's a societal and economic dead end. I think it's providing a lot of tools for people, but I think we need to prepare for it, though. When it comes to UBI, we need to prepare, because a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. Maybe there is a bubble, maybe there's an AI bubble building at the moment, and it will burst. But I don't see us going back to the way things were before. Ivan, thank you so much for that super chat. Great to see you on the stream tonight. The video of Farage in his form of free speech on his terms, yes. Get those people out. We need to have some free speech here. Look, I'm of the idea that you should bring people up, bring them up on stage and have a discussion with them. If somebody's there trying to push a message, and of course Farage is not interested in having a discussion, it's his platform and he doesn't give a crap about anyone else. It's his company, remember. But if it was me, I would invite the person up and let's have a discussion about this. Is it because if the person is just heckling, then they're not interested in having a discussion. But if you bring them up, maybe you have a chance of explaining to them your way of thinking. You can have an adult conversation. But Farage is not really interested in that. Okay, let's move on. Jeremy Corbyn is not very happy, as you can imagine, with the Labour government. So he appeared on the Sophie Ridge show, where it says here, former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn has joined Sophie Ridge to discuss the spending cuts to come in the spring statement. Now, we don't know if there are going to be spending cuts, but it's looking more and more likely that will be the case. But let's hear what he had to say.
The Labour Party in government is an enormous disappointment. I never thought I'd hear the day when a Chancellor would get up and say they're taking £5 billion out of the income of the very poorest disabled people in our society. It is a disgrace.
They won't call it austerity. They will believe it's efficiency or spending taxpayers' money
I might
wisely.
call it austerity.
Do you call it austerity?
Yes, I do, because it is basically a role of austerity in reducing the levels of public expenditure at the expense of the poorest within our society.
As I said, I'm not Jeremy Corbyn's biggest fan, but I think he's correct here. This is not what you'd expect from a Labour government. This is what you'd expect from the Tories. So changing the benefit system or the entitlement system in order to punish people, changing it to benefit companies who are not interested in providing people with stable employment. For example, when it comes to, there's a transaction tax that could have been put through that would harm Amazon, the technology companies. They would end up having to pay this, but it seems that they're going back on that. I'm no Corbyn fan, but he's absolutely correct on this one. Yes, you don't have to agree with everyone on everything to agree with someone on some things, but he's correct. And I keep saying, what's the point in having a government? Doesn't matter if it's a Labour government or whatever. What's the point in having a government if it doesn't look after the most vulnerable in society? And the most vulnerable, of course, are people who are disabled, the poor, the elderly. The rich can take a bit of a hit. They have very broad shoulders. If they were to lose a certain, a percentage of their income or their wealth, they would still survive. Most of them would be, may not even notice the difference. But the poorest in society, as a society, we need to look after everyone, because we never know what could happen to us. Even if you want to take it from a selfish point of view, you don't care about others, you just care about yourself. Don't you want to live in a society that protects you if something goes wrong? None of us know what could happen tomorrow. We could be crossing the street and be hit by a bus, and we could be in a desperate situation. We would hope that the government is there to support us during that period of time, during that change in our lives. Let me read some of your comments as well. Stormer Red Tory, bought and paid for. Personally, I think Jeremy is bad on vibes, but good on policy. Yes, yes. When it came to the election in 2019, I was tearing my hair out. I don't have much left, but I was tearing my hair out. I didn't understand why he wouldn't engage more with the public, why he wouldn't engage more with commentators. There was an opportunity for him to talk to people outside his bubble, because he spoke to people who agreed with him, but he didn't speak with people who disagreed with him. And there was an opportunity. He's very different to Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders in 2020, when he was running for the candidate to be, running for, the presidential the primaries. When he was running in the primaries, he went on Fox News. He spoke to people on Fox News. Now, many people when he announced that he was going to go on Fox News, called him a traitor and said, "Oh, you shouldn't go on there. They're going to treat you with like crap or whatever." And he said, "No, I need to go there because I need to deliver my message to people who won't generally hear it." And when he went on, people were clapping. In the audience, people were clapping for Bernie Sanders, because they may not have agreed with all of his politics, but they respected him. So this guy is authentic. This is not some sort of charlatan. So I think there was an opportunity for Jeremy Corbyn to go on LBC, to go on a number of different shows, and to present the policies, to present himself. But there was a missed opportunity. Instead, he went on left-wing shows where he knew that he wouldn't really be challenged, and that's not going to. I think he had a lot of baggage, of course, and there were a lot of the right-wing media, of course, were out to get him. But you need to engage with them. You don't let them set the narrative. You set the narrative. You have to go there and speak to them, and you decide. And you say, "This is what I represent, not what you're selling to your audience of what I represent." Misrepresenting me. Because the first and last question he'd be asked about would be some anti-Semitism. What if Jeremy Corbyn became Prime Minister? If he had been Prime Minister in 2019, we wouldn't have seen the situation. Look, I think when it comes to Brexit, we'll have to park that. But when it comes to, for example, the pandemic, do you think Jeremy Corbyn would have ignored Cobra meetings? Do you think Jeremy Corbyn would have ignored the advice of SAGE? Do you think he would have done the things Boris Johnson did? No, of course not. He would have handled the pandemic much better than the Tories did. So, in general, I think you wouldn't have ended up with the situation where Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak. Jeremy Corbyn would have been a much better anyone would have been a better Prime Minister than Boris Johnson, with the exception of Liz Truss. Many of us in Latin America see Bernie Sanders as the United States Pepe Muia minus gorilla and grade of humbleness of Pepe. I'm not sure. I'll need to do some research into that. But he's a good guy, and he's there's no evil about him. There's no lying about him. He's honest. I think he's more of a mentor figure. I don't see him becoming president one day. I think he's somebody who can mentor other figures within the Democratic Party. Look, I think the Democrats at the next election, if there is another election, they need to put up somebody younger than Trump. Doesn't have to be maybe AOC. I would love to see AOC, but unfortunately, I think in the eyes of the public, she's too young. I don't think she's too young, but I think in the eyes of the public, she's too young. So you'd need somebody younger than Trump, somebody charismatic, somebody who has fire in their belly, but with maybe Bernie Sanders as their mentor. Somebody fresh, somebody new. You know, Trump is old, but he also has been around for a long time. So I think you need to bring in somebody new, somebody fresh, somebody who can say, look, you know, I'm going to be different. I'm going to represent people. Trump represents the rich. He represents oligarchs. I'm going to represent the people. That's, you know, hoping that there will be another election. I'm really fearful that there won't be another election, that Donald Trump will be president for life, or he'll just appoint J.D. Vance or Elon Musk as the next president. There's a real risk there. Anyway, talking about that, let me bring up my next link. J.D. Vance, even less popular with Brits than Donald Trump. So Donald Trump is not very popular, but J.D. Vance is even less popular. Can you believe? So a poll by Ipsos shows just 14% have a favorable view of the US vice president compared with 21% for Donald Trump. It comes after Mr. Vance was implicated in a security breach after a Signal chat was accidentally leaked to a US journalist. You know, I think a lot of this is down to people who don't even know who he is. Like, you know, your average person on the street knows who Donald Trump is and probably doesn't like Donald Trump. But when they're asked about J.D. Vance, they're probably like, who? You know, not everyone is a political junkie like ourselves here. So I think most people would be like, yeah, well, I don't know. Well, I don't like Trump, but maybe he's better. Do you know who he is? No. That's probably it. I agree with him on a lot of things, but this is stupid from Phil because he's wrong and he knows it. America needs another Obama. Vance is vile. Yeah, I think Vance is actually worse than Trump because I think at the moment Trump just represents a sort of placeholder. Trump doesn't have the power. He's just sitting there. You know, he's signing off things that people give to him. He doesn't actually, he's just waiting for, you know, lunch to arrive and then waiting for lunch to be finished so he can go and play golf or something like that. I honestly don't think Trump really cares about being president anymore. He likes the attention, but he was never interested in doing the work of being president. He just liked the perks of the job. And now it's even more the case where he's just sitting back. He just looks like he's lazy. He couldn't really give a shit, and somebody else is doing the work behind the scenes. So it's Vance and Elon Musk, of course. You know, the shadow president or the real president. You know, because once again, I honestly don't think does Trump even know what day it is? He likes the money max and not being in prison. Yes, that's a valid point. The money is beneficial, and why is he there? To make lots of money for him and his family and people like him. That's why they're all there. They don't care about America. They actually want to destroy America because if they destroy the economy and destroy America, what are they doing? For example, when it comes to tourism, it seems has taken a massive hit in the US because of what's been happening with ICE, the agency dealing with immigration. People have been arrested. Many people are afraid to go to the United States. Doctors, scientists who have arrived in the US have had their phones confiscated and checked for any negative comments about Trump. One was sent back to France there recently, deported back to France because of comments they made on social media. So much for free speech. But it seems to be the case that, you know, who wants to go on holiday? I posted a comment on the channel, and, you know, 8% of people said, yeah, I'd feel safe going to the US. Of course, it's not a scientific poll, but it's concerning. I think I'll go to Canada instead. And Canada's, in a sense, maybe benefiting in some way, but I feel really sorry for people who are, Americans who are like saying, we're not like this, and Canadians who, for example, who need to cross the border in order to work, to go to their place of work or to meet with friends and family. But it's not exactly surprising that J.D. Vance is not very popular. I think he's going to get less and less popular. But it doesn't really make any difference because he's not running for public office in the UK or in Europe. Ipsos questioned 1,132 adults aged 18 and over across Great Britain online between the 14th and 17th of March, just weeks after the heated exchange between Mr. Vance, Mr. Trump and Vladimir Zelensky in the White House over military assistance to Ukraine. The poll was carried out before a conversation on the messaging app Signal, so it's probably likely to go down even further. I'm not interested in the discussion. What about the polling? Kieran Pedley, Ipsos Director of Politics, told Sky News, it's clear that from those numbers that Vance is unpopular with the British public. A majority hold an unfavourable view of the Vice President, including clear majorities of Conservatives, Labour and Lib Dem voters. Reform UK supporters are more split, with slightly more holding an unfavourable view than a favourable one. So even with Reform UK voters, J.D. Vance is not doing so great. Because, not everyone in Reform UK is a massive racist or a Trump fan. So, even people in Reform will be like, well, yeah, I'm not a big fan of him because of what he's doing to us, to the UK. He's treating the UK with contempt. Vance hates Europe, Max, so it makes sense that we hate him. Yes, it's mutual. The feeling is mutual. It's the sofa abuse folk don't like. It's this thing he has with sofas. So, everyone has a sofa in their house, and when they think of J.D. Vance, their empathy is extended to their own sofa. You wouldn't want your sofa being abused by J.D. Vance or people like that. So, yeah, we all have empathy. Oh my goodness. So before we leave the United States, we have another story here, and then we'll take our comedy break. So Donald Trump's former national security advisor, Ambassador John Bolton, says he finds it incomprehensible the US officials could use a commercial signal group chat to discuss US military action. This is a guy who was part of Donald Trump's first administration, and then Trump got rid of him because he doesn't like mustaches.
I think it's even worse than incompetent. It's just incomprehensible to me that given the time and effort and money that the United States has spent over decades to develop the most secure telecommunications capabilities in the world, that anybody would get on a Signal commercial app and discuss anything related to national security. What's the point of having all this capacity simply to ignore it? And it raises the question whether this was the first time this has happened in this administration on an important national security issue, i.e. whether to attack the Houthis in Yemen, or it's been the subject of others. I think this is just beginning. Donald Trump's reaction is the same as his reaction is all the time. I didn't have anything to do with it. It's not my fault. And he's defending members of his administration against what he sees as a partisan Democratic attack. Now, We'll see how far it goes. I don't think Trump is going to do anything until he takes some heat himself. And it remains to be seen if that will happen.
What would you have done?
I don't think. Yeah, I think I'm not a big fan of John Bolton or Ramsey Bolton, but no, he's right here. Yeah, Trump doesn't care because it's not affecting Trump; it's affecting others. Ivan, thank you so much for that super chat once again. I really worry that Vance could be the next American president. Look, it depends on a number of factors. I always say the election is if a normal election takes place, and that can't be guaranteed. But if a normal election takes place, it will be a determination of whether people are happy with the incumbent, the Republicans. So if people are not happy with the Republicans, then they're going to vote them out. It doesn't matter who's in charge. It doesn't matter if it's Trump. It doesn't matter if it's Vance. If the American people are not happy at the moment, and I think they would, even Republicans, farmers who had big signs up, big flags up of Donald Trump, are taking them down now. So Trump is taking a massive hit. Now, if Trump is taking a hit, whoever Trump endorses isn't really going to be helped. So, a lot of the support, a lot of what got Trump over the line is this core base. People are not happy with Joe Biden and the Democrats, and then they voted for Trump. People who were in the bag for Trump all along. These hardcore supporters. If Trump is losing them, doesn't matter who he endorses. If he's not running, whoever he endorses is not going to do very well. So at the moment, DeSantis, I don't think the problem is the Republican brand, the Republican Party. So it doesn't matter who the Republicans put up, unless this is somebody who's going to say, look, I'm going to improve things. But if things improve, it will be Donald Trump who will benefit. If things do not improve, the entire Republican Party will suffer. That's how it works. Now, it's not just about the economy doing well, it's also how people feel about it. Because as we saw with Biden, the economy was doing pretty well, but people didn't feel that they were doing well, so they decided to kick Biden out. Doesn't matter who's on the other side, as we have seen. Doesn't matter if it's a rapist, convicted felon, criminal, sexist, piece of crap. Doesn't matter what's on the other side, people will vote. And this is a word of warning to Labour. Whenever I hear comments about, well, nobody will vote for Nigel Farage is a lying charlatan. Doesn't matter. People will vote against the incumbent if they're angry. This is something people don't seem to understand when they're criticizing the voters for Labour. People voted against the Tories. It's not that this was a massive endorsement of Keir Starmer and his policies. The last election, I understand why people are saying, well, why did you vote for Labour? They're like the Tories. But people didn't vote for Labour. They voted against the Tories. Now, in some cases, maybe they got something like the Tories, but they were voting against the Conservative Party. It didn't matter who was on the other side. People who voted for Labour didn't even know who Keir Starmer was. So it's not about Starmer and his policies. People are angry now. And this is a word of warning for Labour. If they want to hold on to power, and they have a big majority, but it's very, very shallow. If they want to hold on to that, they need to turn things around, and they need to convince people that their lives are getting better. There's no point improving some things, but if people don't feel it, then they're not going to vote for you. When it comes to JD Vance, just back to Ivan's comment, I don't see it happening now. Now, something could change. A lot of things could change in the future. If there are no elections, then Trump could just appoint JD Vance as president. And, who's going to stop that? Honestly, that's an honest question. Who would actually stop it? Because there's no one there to stop it. The Democrats can't stop it. Congress can't stop it. Donald Trump has already deported people without respecting their human rights. He sent them to El Salvador. So, if he's sending people because they have certain tattoos to El Salvador, what's to stop him from arresting people who have nothing to do with so-called gangs? What about his political enemies? Well, what's to stop Donald Trump arresting Joe Biden and sending him to El Salvador? Honestly, that's an honest question. What's to stop Trump from doing that? He wouldn't do it. Not at this stage, not yet. But there's nothing there to stop him. The Republicans aren't going to stop him. The Democrats can't stop him. The justice system can't stop him. Alistair, thank you so much for those memberships. Very kind of you. One for Matt, one for Brad, one for Anne, Mike, SG. Thank you very much for those. Very kind of you once again, Alistair. Hope you're well tonight. Will Kanzuk ever happen? I see a bigger, I see a stronger relationship between Canada and the European Union than the idea of Kanzuk. Kanzuk doesn't make a lot of sense because of how far the different countries are apart. Something that was very interesting at the Rejoin EU conference was the biggest campaigner, the most powerful campaigner for the UK to rejoin the European Union is Donald Trump. Donald Trump has done more for the UK to rejoin the European Union than any pro-European politician in the UK. I've compared this to, the Conservative Party have done more for United Ireland. Brexit has done more for United Ireland than the IRA could ever have achieved. In the same way that the UK has to make a decision. Do you still no trade agreement, Max? No, they're not going to do a trade deal with the US because, first of all, and I said before, it's a bit of a red herring because most of the trade the UK does is in services. So a trade deal on goods doesn't make a lot of sense for the UK. It's not worth it, especially as you'd have to give massive concessions like the NHS and import chlorinated chicken and hormone-treated beef. So you'd have to do that in order to get access to this trade deal. But a trade deal in services would be fine with the UK, and it wouldn't really impact most people's lives. But a trade deal in goods would be a disaster. But what's the point in signing a trade deal with Donald Trump if he's not going to respect it? He signed a trade deal. He negotiated a trade deal with Canada in his first term, and now he's tearing it up by imposing tariffs. So Donald Trump is not somebody you can do business with. He's not reliable. Once again, you could sign a trade deal with him today, and he'd break it tomorrow, and there's nothing you could do about it. Unfortunately, Max, we won't rejoin the EU precisely because of Trump. Trump won't be around for all that long, but I think the damage being done to the so-called special relationship is driving the UK into the arms of the EU. Canada can't join the European Union, but support for Canada joining the European Union is at record levels in Canada. Canada, look, let me be frank, Canada can't join for a number of reasons, but support for the idea of joining the European Union is pretty good in Canada at the moment. It would be wonderful to see Canada join the European Union, but because it's so far away, and I think there are a number of other issues that wouldn't allow it to happen. If the US agrees to join the Commonwealth, I don't see that happening. Trump doesn't share power with anyone. Like Lord Sauron. Guys, we're about halfway through the stream, over halfway through the stream, so I'm just going to take a short comedy moment, and we'll be back in just a jiffy with more serious stuff. Hope you... we'll do this one, yes.
You can't protest in a way that offends the right. You can't teach things that the right doesn't want you to teach. You can't read things that they don't want you to read. You can't use words that they don't want you to use, but they love free speech. I guess fear not. At least we'll always have art.
President Trump demanding a painting of him be removed because he finds it unflattering.
He's demanding they take it down because he believes this picture is unflattering, which really makes you think, do you think other pictures of you are flattering? At least in the painting, they blended the foundation into your hairline.
Yes, at least in the painting, they blended the foundation into your hair, so it didn't look like you had been hit by a pie or something. Okay, guys, moving on. Thousands of new homes to be built across England in £2 billion announced. £2 billion plan announced by the Chancellor. So thousands of new homes in England will be built as part of a £2 billion plan to boost social and affordable housing building, the government has said. Up to 18,000 new homes are set to be delivered, which Chancellor Richard said could go some way to fixing the housing crisis. As long as a lot of them aren't bought up by, like a single Labour MP who happens to be a landlord with 40 existing properties, that would be pretty important. The charity said the vast majority of new homes should be for social rent amid record highs in homelessness across the country. The funding is described by the government as a down payment from the Treasury ahead of the long-term investment in social and affordable housing expected to be announced later in the year. The government expects at least half of the 18,000 would be social homes, but charities have called for the vast majority to be social rent as homelessness record hit a high across the country. Okay, well, I didn't repeat it the same line. Yeah, so it says, what did they say? At least half. Okay, why are you not making make all of them affordable housing? This is where the problem is. The problem is there's a complete lack of affordable and social housing. Like, if you don't need affordable and social housing, then you can buy your house. So you can go to the normal market. But if you can't go to the normal market, you need to rely on affordable and social. Like, what is the justification? What's the mentality here of saying, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to build 18,000 homes, but we're going to make only half of them affordable and social. Affordable is meaningless. Yeah, affordable. Some politicians in Ireland came out recently and they were like, yeah, we're going to have affordable housing. It starts off like at 300,000. It's like, what? BMW reviews £600 upgrade to its Cowley plant in Oxfordshire because of Brexit. Check it out, Max. I will. Thanks for that information, Anthony. 600 million, I imagine, upgrade. His hardcore followers will do whatever he says. Rigsby economics. I've seen worse. The guy who painted the naked Biffo standing on a bog and who then hung it in the National Gallery in Dublin should be commissioned a painting of a portrait of Trump. Yes. I think there's a need for lower cost housing to buy as well as to rent. Yes. Private rentals for one bedroom flat where I live are at an average of 200 above the LHA rate. 200 above, £200 above. Labour has got to redefine affordable related to income. 3.1 times the median average salary is affordable. Affordable generally means 25% below the market value, with help to buy schemes like part ownership. There was a scheme here in Italy some years ago. I don't know if it was also in the UK, where it's like rent to buy. So what you do is instead of buying a property, well, in a sense you buy a property, but you rent for a number of years in order to bring down the value of the property. So you cover, instead of getting a mortgage for the property, what you do is you rent, but all of the rent goes to cover the cost of the mortgage or the cost of the house. So you rent for like 10 years, but instead of renting and then having nothing at the end, you rent, but this rent goes towards the value of the property or covering the cost of the house. So I think this was a good way because it's very difficult for many people to get a mortgage as well. So at least if you were able to rent, and then at the end of the 10 years or whatever, if you were not interested in purchasing the home, then you could go and do something else. But at least if you decided to go take the next step and buy the property, at least you would have had paid off some of the value of it. In Scotland, there have been rent and buy, 25% ownership, or 50 and 70 or 75%. It's called 50-50 in Ireland. That's good. There's no shortage of land, so there should be no justification for a housing crisis. It's a political decision. If there are landlords with 40 properties, like there's the MP in the House of Commons, or if, when it comes to NIMBYism and stuff like this is something that needs to be dealt with. How is it possible that in other countries, like Finland doesn't have a housing crisis? How is it possible? It's not related to the size of the population. It's related to political policies. The housing associations are getting greedy. Anyway, let's move on to the next topic. Of course, tomorrow there will be the spring statement from the Chancellor. It's not expected to last very long, but it will be after PMQs, I believe. Voluntary exit schemes underway across government departments ahead of Rachel Reeves' spending cuts. Once again, I thought there were not meant to be any spending cuts. Multiple departments, including the Department for the Environment and Rural Affairs, the Foreign Office and Cabinet Office, have all kick-started the plans in line with the government's ambition to reduce bureaucracy and make the state more efficient. So, austerity, basically. When they talk about reducing the size of the state and making it more efficient, the problem here is that if you lay off staff, those staff may be necessary to provide public services. And if they're not able to provide public services, then what's the point in having the government department in the first place? Others, including the Department of Health and Social Care and the Ministry of Housing and Local Government, have yet to start the schemes, but it's expected they will, with the former already set to lose staff following the shock abolition of NHS England that was announced earlier this month. It comes as Rachel Reeves prepares to deliver her spring statement on Wednesday, when she's expected to announce plans to cut the civil service running costs by 15%, along further savings. 15%. Remember, you should be increasing money in public services because the Tories ran them into the ground. So I don't understand this argument. The Conservatives have left public services in tatters. So I thought what Labour were going to do is, okay, we've looked at the public services, they're completely broken. What we're going to do is we're going to pump a huge amount of money into them. That's what I actually thought Labour were going to do, because that's what I would do. If you look around and you see everything is broken, you don't say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to maintain it broken and we're going to break it into smaller pieces. No, you try and repair stuff. You try and rebuild things. Like if there was a town and some of the buildings were knocked down by an earthquake, you wouldn't say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to knock down another 15% of those buildings and then people can live in tents. No, you would rebuild. Isn't that what you would normally do after destruction? The Tories wrecked everything. The new government should be pumping money into the economy, rebuilding. Like they were even saying themselves, look, the public services are on their knees. We need to rebuild. We need to start again. But they seem to be doing the opposite. Because cutting public services is going to make life more difficult for everyone. The move, confirmed by the Chancellor on Sunday, could result in 10,000 civil servants' jobs being axed after the numbers ballooned during the pandemic. Ms. Rees, remember she keeps talking about we need to force people into work. But what about these 10,000 civil servants? What's going to happen to them? Are they going to be given different jobs? Are they going to be put on the dole? Are they going to be taught to learn to code or something? What's going to happen to them? Mr. Rees hosts the cuts, which he said will be the back office jobs rather than frontline services, will slash more than $2 billion from the budget. See, the problem with this type of argument is if these are jobs that are not necessary, then why are they there in the first place? Like, think about it for a moment. Why did the Tories not fire these people? The Tories hate the public service. The Tories hate civil servants. The Tories hate government. So why didn't the Tories sack all these people? Like, if these people didn't have any function, I believe they actually have a function. They must have a function. But if they didn't have a function, why didn't the Tories get rid of them when they were in power? They didn't. Why did they not? Probably because they're needed. Like, the Tories didn't have a problem picking fights with trade unions. We saw that when it came to Mick Lynch and others. The Tories loved picking fights with the trade unions because then they could say, oh, the trade union is the problem. We need to lay off a load of staff. Without a sound, reliable back office, front office can't do their... Yeah, you need the back office to do the front... Like, in any... So we don't know what she means by back office. It could mean anything here. More cuts to spending, but like having a 3-inch member, yet asking the surgeon to chop off. Anything to avoid taxing the super rich. Labour is chasing the hard right. Don't panic. Scotland oil will last another 50 years. Labour austerity means Reform UK will win in 2028. You're hearing it now. If they continue this way, Nigel Farage will be Prime Minister. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm completely wrong here. But all the Tories... So the Tories' way back to power is for people to forget. And people do forget. You know, it's only been a year and people have not completely forgotten, but people's minds are getting a bit hazy when it comes to the Tories. So there is a risk that given another few years and people will forget about Boris Johnson and Partygate and Liz Truss and all of these things. Unfortunately, this is how the electorate work. They have very short memories. Their memory is still there now, but it's getting a bit hazy about the Tories. And all the Tories have to do is sit and wait. Now, their leaders can't do that. The leaders need to present policies, but the party itself just needs to sit and wait and watch Labour sort of destroy itself. Reform UK are in a better position because they can represent, well, we're the new party. We have new ideas. We're going to do something different. We're not Labour. So this is my message to Labour. You need to start investing in public services. Because if you invest in public services, then you improve the lives of ordinary people. If ordinary people's lives get better, then they're going to be happier. If they're happier, they're not going to vote for the alternative. They're going to vote for you. The rich from all over the world will still come to shop and eat and enjoy London. The rich from outside the UK will be welcome and pampered in a fairer country. Yes. Reform just going to split the right-wing vote like the SDP did to the left in the 1980s. If there isn't tactical voting, so if there's tactical voting, the Conservatives and Reform could benefit from that. So in other good news, yes, in other good news, we have this story here.
Wages in this country have had the longest squeeze, not since the 1950s, not since 1900, since the Battle of Waterloo, real terms pay. I mean, if you look at it as well, public sector workers, these are the pay, of course, that MPs have set. An experienced nurse had a real terms pay cut of a quarter under the last government. You've had a slight increase since, but not even close to reversing that.
So MPs should wait until everybody else in the public sector has had a real terms pay increase before they should even consider paying themselves an extra penny.
I think it's just most people would look at the fact that MPs have imposed real terms pay cuts on other people. And at the moment, as you've noted, they are imposing £5 billion worth of cuts on disabled people who can't dress themselves by themselves, people who can't use the toilet by themselves. MPs are now going to vote to remove support from them, whilst their pay, which, by the way, you said 95 grand, you're excluding ministers from that. A junior minister's got £125,000 a year. A cabinet minister's on £160,000 a year. That's in the top 1%, beyond the dreams of most people.
Daisy. And he's right. Now, the problem here is not so much the salaries, but it's also the bonus, like the increase. At a time when people are struggling to get by, look, there is an argument to be made. I don't fully buy into this argument, but some people make the argument, look, if you pay MPs more money, then you're going to get better MPs. I don't fully agree with that, because in the past, you had better government ministers, you had better MPs, and the wages and the salaries were lower. Now the salaries are higher, much higher, and look at what you're getting. Like recently you had Jonathan Gullis, you had Boris Johnson, at the moment you have Kemi Badenoch, you have Esther McVeigh. She's still an MP, isn't she? These are the types of people that are in the House of Commons. Mark Francois. This is, this idea that, well, if you pay them more, you get better quality. It doesn't always work like this. And people who get into politics generally don't start off getting in because, with the goal of getting lots of money. But then if they're in a safe seat or they're in a comfortable position, then they'll be like, yeah, I'm here just for the money. Remember Liz frigging Truss. How could I have forgotten Liz Truss? Liz Truss got paid Prime Minister wages. She wasn't even worth minimum wage. Muck Francois. Is Francois not in fail yet? And many of them are still moonlighting. Exactly. Like Frogface. I wonder what school they all went to. I wonder, was it a private school or a state school? MPs pay should be linked to the civil service pay, which is the case in Ireland. Yeah, I agree. Or I would go a step further. I know this probably isn't going to happen, but we can dream. Shouldn't MPs' pay be linked to performance? So the performance of the country. If the quality of life of people is going up, you could have an independent index. People's lives are getting better. Politicians get more pay. If the economy is growing, the MPs get better pay. Good news, you're having a laugh. Thanks, David. Great to see you on the stream tonight. Agree MPs should be paid more to open up as a viable career for people who are already highly paid. Agree about getting rid of second jobs. Yeah, look, if you have a job, you shouldn't have a second job. Okay? If being an MP isn't paying you enough, then go and do something else. Go and work in the private sector. That's the way it should be. If you don't want to be, if you're not earning enough this way, then just go and do something else. So guys, we're almost at the end of the stream. I just want to cover one final story here before we finish. Working class don't want handouts, says Angela Rayner.
I know that it's a very working class thing that people do want to be able to provide for their families and themselves. They don't want handouts, they want support. And that's the important element of that welfare reform.
Okay, I'm not sure what's happening with Angela Rayner recently, because she's come out with some pretty strange statements. Max, did you hear about Lawrence Fox being charged with the sex offences and could be jailed for 2 years and placed on the sex offenders register? Wow. I heard something about upskirting. I didn't read the whole story. So finally, this guy has been put away. Should have been put away a long time ago. And thankfully, it's not happening in the US, or Trump will give him a pardon or something. It says here, working class people do not want handouts but support to find jobs, Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner has said. What's this thing about we need to get people into work? People need to work. What's this all about? I don't understand this anymore. Last week, the government set out changes to the benefit system aimed at saving £5 billion, including making it harder for people to claim disability payments. Asked whether the cuts were a hard sell to Labour MPs and supporters, Rayner told the BBC it's a working class thing that people don't want to be able to provide, that they do want to be able to provide for their families and themselves, adding that the welfare package, including £1 billion to support opportunities to get back into work. I also hate this term, get back into work, because for many people they can't work. So it's not about getting back into work. They can't work because they're physically not able to. They're not able to do it mentally. Or in some cases, they're working as carers. So they're not going to get into work because they already have a type of job. Should the body awarding MPs pay rises be abolished? At the moment, it goes against the interest of the public. So it was brought in, I believe, in order to provide a fairer analysis. Thanks so much, Ivan. A fair analysis when it comes to MP's pay, because before I think it was set by Parliament, but I think it's not a good look, is it? People are struggling at the moment, and then MPs get paid an extra 2.5%. Now, if you're on minimum wage, 2.5% isn't going to really make it much difference. But if you're closer to £100,000 a year, 2.5% makes a big difference. And of course, these are people who are able to claim expenses like meals and accommodation and transport and stuff like that. They have privileges in their job that people don't have in their own jobs. Very few people are able to say, well, look, the company is going to pay for my transport to and from work, or pay for my accommodation if I have to relocate there. Some companies may do that, but very few will do that. Driving landfill for Amazon? No thanks. Universal credit isn't a lifestyle. I looked it up. Less than £400 a month, minus any housing benefit top-ups. Universal credit is an absolute disaster. It needs to go. Subsidised bars and free London parking. Wonderful. The changes mean that that a chronic depression, mental health sufferer who has been ill for 10, 15 or 20 years, who can switch on a kettle, loses their benefit. My goodness. I just don't understand this. Like, what's the point in having a government if it's forcing people off this important support? I was caring for both my parents for decades. I spent my savings, and when I spent it all, I got about £1 an hour for 100 hours of caring a week. Like, this is the I'm not saying this because you're on the stream, but I think this is probably the most important job in society. Like, I can't think of a job more important than a carer. And why isn't that why isn't there real support for carers? Ed Davey seems to be the only one who's talking about it in Parliament, but a pound an hour for 100 hours. Like, there's no job would do that. No job would pay that. And it's such an important job. It's a job that has been it's a job that's been outsourced to families and to loved ones. It shouldn't be like that. As a society, we should be saying, look, we're willing to pay more taxes. We're willing to forgo something else in order to have this. I think I keep saying health, social care, education and housing, they should be the priorities of government. Making sure, and food, of course, making sure that people get a meal. There was a story, a rumor that the government may cut support to cut free school meals. Do we have to get Marcus Rashford involved again? Now, it was a rumor. Hopefully that it was just a rumor. Where have our morals gone? A lot of physical jobs, and it wears you down. Yes. Yeah, caring is a very physical job as well. Was a care from my mum. It's a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour-day job. The allowance is ridiculous compared to how much carers save the government. Yes. It's ridiculous that the government is not doing this. This should be the job of the state, to provide care for people in their homes, to provide care for people in general. Once again, what's the point in having a government? Anyway, guys, we're about at the end of the live stream. Before we finish, we have our one for the road. I hope you'll enjoy it. I want to say thank you to everyone who came on tonight. Thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job as always. Thanks to everyone who smashed the like button. And thanks to everyone who sent a super chat. Greatly appreciated. I will be on the live stream again on Friday. Same bad time, same bad channel. Next week, I may not be here, but I'll keep you guys posted about that. But hope you enjoy this. This is quite good. No, not that one. This one. Sorry.
It's been another breathless week in American politics as Donald Trump rips up old certainties and alliances. We're joined now by former Tory MP and current podcaster, the Right Honourable Jeff Jeffrey.
Hello! Yes, every week I shoot the tea, spill the breeze, and generally have a good old chinwagon about the state of the world.
And what's it called?
Oh God, the rest is Jeffrey.
And who's your co-host?
Oh no, it's just me. I wanted the chance to express my unvarnished opinions without fear or favour, without worrying about somebody interrupting or editing me.
Right.
Also, no one else wanted to do it.
Turning to Donald Trump then, what's been your reaction to his extraordinary pronouncements this week?
Well, the thing you have to remember about Donald Trump is he's always looking for a deal, and we have to help him make a good one.
Trump said that President Zelensky is a dictator and has a 4% approval rating.
To be fair, that does sound low.
But it's not true. The latest polls show him at over 50%.
Well, Trump possibly just misspoke then, didn't he? I mean, 4% does sound a bit like 50%.
Trump also said that Ukraine started the war. Is that not just classic victim blaming?
He's just trying to shock us in Europe into doing something.
Really?
Yes, it's all a clever plan. He wants to make it look like he's blaming Ukraine to get the Europeans off their backsides and get us involved.
What?
And to be fair, if you look at it from a different point of view, Ukraine did start the war.
What point of view is that?
Backwards through time. Have you seen Tenet or Benjamin Button?
So you're not worried?
Of course not. He doesn't really love Russia and hate Ukraine. It's all a ploy.
Actually, and this is breaking news, Trump has just tweeted, "I love Russia and hate Ukraine. Zelensky must go," followed by 5 exclamation marks, and also, "This is not a ploy."
Yeah, that's very clever. I think he's speaking in code.
He's also tweeted a picture of himself as a king. Does that not concern you?
I love the king. And anyway, it's obvious he's just joking.
He's actually just tweeted, "I'm not joking, I really am a king."
Come on, he's a funny guy.
Okay, now he's tweeting, "Funny how? Do I amuse you? Am I a clown?"
He's really committing to the bit. I love it.
More tweets coming in. Now Trump is saying, "Who is this Gerald idiot? He is an embarrassment to England and should be in prison." Oh, and Elon Musk has just quote tweeted that with the words, "Who this cuck?"
Oh my God, Elon mentioned me. Did he tag in the podcast?
Is there really nothing Trump could say that would get you to condemn him?
You're just being silly. America is an important ally and we have to respect the president.
Ooh, another Trump tweet. "I like Keir Starmer, he's a good guy."
I'm sorry, he's gone too far now. That is basically treason.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Sign up to my Patreon.
Next up, as news of the Pope's declining health hits the headlines, we ask, has Conclave's Oscar campaign gone too far?
So guys, have a great week. I'll see you on Friday. Same bad time, same bad channel. Stay safe, take care, and good night.